Thank you once again for tuning in to It's My Turn Now, where everybody gets an opportunity to share your thoughts, share your ideas with us. Just tell us what's on your mind. We're so excited today. We have some tremendous men and women of God who have a special calling in their life, and that special calling is in the area of teaching. They are teachers, ministers. They all are actively involved in some area of education. So I want you to tune in with us on tonight. Feel free to leave comments. Feel free to share what's on your mind. There is a link that's on this page, on my Facebook page. If you want to come on, just click on the link, and we would love to hear your comments. So we're going to bring our guests on right now. Again, our topic tonight is recognizing the educators. Recognize them. I think, welcome Mariah, welcome Andrell, welcome Pastor Terence, welcome Lady Huckleberry. Welcome to It's My Turn Now. And we're going to start with Mariah Broader. Welcome to It's My Turn Now.
My turn now. Hello.
There you go. All right. Take about a minute. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Mariah Broader. I'm 29, married. I have 2 kids, a 3-year-old girl and a 1-year-old son. And I currently teach on the east side of Indy. I currently teach kindergarten. I've taught 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade.
Oh, great. Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, Brother Mondrell, welcome to It's My Turn Now.
Well, it's my turn now, Bishop. My name is
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Mondrell Gary. I presently reside in McDonough, Georgia, where I serve as an assistant principal in the metro area, and been in education for 17 years. Just been blessed to have a few degrees under my belt, which led to administration.
17 years? You've been teaching for 17 years, or is that 17 years since you started in college?
17 years teaching.
17 years. I remember Mondrell when he was a freshman in college. I can't hardly believe it's been 17 years since you've been teaching.
Yes,
sir.
Time
sure does pass fast. Good Lord. Amen. Ain't God good? All right. Sister Tonya Huckleberry.
It's
Sister Huckleberry.
Now.
All right. Yes, it is.
Hello.
Praise the Lord.
Okay. I am married to my wonderful husband, Clarence, and we have 6 children together. I taught primarily in Indianapolis public schools, but now have the awesome privilege of being in Pike Township for about 3 years now. Let's see, I am an English teacher.
All right. English teacher. Very good. And how long you say you've been teaching again?
I am bringing my 34th year of teaching to a close here in about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for joining us on It's My Turn Now. Let me see. Last but not least, Pastor Terence Brown. Welcome to It's My Turn Now.
Thank you. It's my turn now, Bishop. So I'm Pastor
sir.
Brown, Pastor Terence Brown. I've been in education. I'll be closing out my 25th year this year in education. I started there at Tech High School. It was my first 2 years, and I ended up moving to the East Coast. And I also am bivocational. I full-time teach and full-time pastor a church here in Virginia called Praise Temple Apostolic Faith Church. And my area of study is biology. So I've been teaching biology about 20 years. So in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working with what we call diploma completing seniors, who we offer alternative pathways for students to graduate early and to be prepped to move on to college or military or to into the workforce in our area.
Okay. Very good. Yeah. Very good. So, Mondrell, I don't know, you've been teaching for 17 years. Has anyone been teaching longer than 17 years?
I believe Miss Huckleberry just said 34.
Yeah, she said 34.
34. Oh, 34 years teaching. I
Yeah,
thought she
I'm
was
at
giving her age.
25.
Huh?
I'm at 25.
25. Okay.
Yes.
25. Man, that's unbelievable. Okay, so Pastor Brown, he kind of gave a shout out to Praise Temple. Praise Temple says, "Praise the Lord." Brother Ezra says, "My turn now." He's giving a shout out to the ladies. It's my turn. Happy
Amen.
belated Mother's Day to the ladies.
Thank
Now, times have changed so much since I was in school. Um, what used to be proper has changed, and I don't want to get into too controversial subjects, but just things have changed. Like Ezra said, well, I'm gonna leave that alone, but I'm just glad that you guys here. What are some of the biggest changes? I'll start with you, Terence, since you say you've been in 25 years, I think. So between you, I'll start with you. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen from the time you started in school to right now?
I think a few of the biggest changes we see is the student and the student's self discipline.
Mm-hmm.
20 some years ago, we came into school and students had a certain understanding of the way you're supposed to act in a classroom.
Right.
Nowadays, we kind of have to teach that along with education. And that kind of now ties into this whole new socio-emotional and mental health component where, 20 years ago, you didn't have to kind of really worry about that. Kids, were able to adjust, able to make changes, able to take failure well, able to take disappointment well, and be able to manage and move forward. Nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
that particular aspect now has to be supported within the school system. That's about the
Right.
major change I've seen.
Thank you. So Huckleberry, you tell us what, since you've been in, what are some of the changes you've seen?
I would say that it's not as easy to kind of summarize or just kind of think one student is like another. And then the other thing is because there's so many different things that so many different layers that students are dealing with, and
Right, true.
what works, even what works 1 year for a certain group of students, same grade level. And by the way, I teach high school. May
Okay.
not work the next year, and so I'm constantly having to gauge the students that I have currently for the year, and sometimes even currently from class to class, and then
Mm-hmm.
have to adjust and modify and approach things differently because it's not the same approach for every year, not the same approach for every group of students.
All right, very good. Thank you. Okay, Brother Mondrell, we'll go to you next because you're the next OG there, so we'll call.
I was going to defer to Mariah, but I'll gladly go.
Well, without hesitation, we know Mariah's a bit younger than you, Mondrell.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. But go ahead, Mariah. Feel free if you want to go.
I'm gonna allow you. I'm gonna allow you, G Money.
Okay.
Because I'm going according to.
Okay, going according to the screen. I got you. Just pretty much so. What Miss Huckleberry and Mr. Brown just said, as it relates just to the layers of student discipline. On the administration side, discipline can consume about 90% of your day. Everything from the buses, cafeteria, and just the home piece. It's a pop in our pop culture. It's one of those times where some of the misbehaviors our parents accept. If you look at social media, you see 4 and 5-year-olds with the middle finger up, and it's nothing to hear a 4-year-old cuss these days. And just even moving from there, just a lot of the systemic accountability. And there's a lot of pressure on educators to meet learning targets and strategic learning goals. And, it's a lot. And then I would also add just the technology piece. Our kids are heavily involved in technology. And like Ms. Huckleberry said, we do have to differentiate our approach. Um, there's an old saying that you can't teach an iPod generation with an 8-track mentality. And so these kids just have a lot at their fingertips. And we have to meet those needs as it relates to those technology pieces as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mandra. Mariah, tell us what has changed since you've been teaching. I know you haven't been teaching quite as long, but some of the challenges that you had.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's much change because I feel like I came in and I feel like education is very heavily standard based. You have to follow these standards. It's very driven by that. And so that's kind of what I've known in education. But if I go back to when I was in elementary school, it was not that case. Like nowadays, kindergarten's all day. We don't have nap. It's not really a break. I was half day kindergarten. I know I learned stuff, but I enjoyed it. It was more of play, learning how to get along with peers, learning how to be in school. And I feel like nowadays there's a big push for you to learn these things so that you can make it to the next grade. And so then by third grade, you can take the I-step and pass the I-step and all these other things. And so I think it's very heavily based and like Mondrell said, a lot of pressure on the teacher to be teaching and keeping up with the pacing guides and things like that. So, yeah, it's kind of how I.
Okay, very, very good. I listened to what all you said, and I say, glad Jamie said she's going to be here for a while. Appreciate that, Jamie. Kalia said, by the way, Sister Huckleberry is one of the best educators in Indianapolis. I think we have some of the best educators on this panel right here. I think this is some of the best educators. As a matter of fact, I think, Mariah, did you just receive an award for your school? Tell us about that.
This year, so they vote for Teacher of the Year, and I'm sure, I think all schools do that, but yeah, I received Teacher of the Year this year at my school, so it's an honor. I do what I do. So.
Congratulations. Teacher of the Year, that's outstanding. One of the things I've noticed, and I see Ed has a comment, but one of the things I noticed, I worked, when I retired from AT&T, I ended up working as a resource teacher. I wanted to give back to the school, and the challenge, I never forget, this is strange. This is something I just couldn't believe. I was teaching and had the kids went to study. I saw about 3 or 4 kids getting under a desk. And I said, wait a minute. I said, what are y'all doing? I said, y'all better get out from under the desk. I'm using my strong base. Y'all better get up. They said, our teacher tell us we can do that. The teachers allow them as a group to get under the desk and study. I mean, the rules and the guidelines that we had coming up, I guess, are out the window. And oftentimes I found out that it's hard for teachers to discipline in the generation we live in. There used to be a time if I did something wrong, which about 80% of the time I was at blame, but 100% of the time my mom believed the teachers. So but now it's probably about 80% the teachers, parents are going to believe their kids and not believe the teachers. Now I want to encourage those who are watching this right here. Feel free to give a comment, share this link. I think the education is so important that we don't appreciate teachers like we should. And if it's up to me, I think teachers should get paid more, and good police officers should get paid more, because though a police officer's job is so dangerous, and an educator's job is so vital to the ring, because they're with those teachers more oftentimes than longer than they're with their parents. And I think we need to get involved. Christians need to get involved. We need to get involved with the education system, know what's going on, know your kids' teachers, build some relationships. I knew someone was having problems, and I intervened for them. The teacher told the teacher told that individual that if they did well, they may get a D- out of the class. And I told the teacher that was unacceptable. Now listen, they said if they really tried hard, I said, this is my thing. I said, if the child wants to learn and they're not learning, then a certain amount of the earnest is on the teacher. But I spent time with it, and they went from a D- to end up getting a B+ for the semester. Why? Because I had to intervene. So I guess what I'll start off. I'll start with you, Ms. Huckleberry. How important is it parents getting involved in the student's education to you? How important is that? Or do you encourage them to email you or call?
Right. So
Okay, you're muted now. So Tony is traveling on the highway. We appreciate her being on here, so
I'm
she may
sorry.
have some technical difficulty. Go ahead.
Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Can
Yes.
you hear me? Okay. All right. I'd say it's really important that parental involvement is crucial, especially with the level that I'm dealing with right now, because I'm at the Pike High School Freshman Center. And so many of these students, obviously, they've never been high school students before. So
Right.
that parent involvement is actually crucial, because many of them, middle school has changed to, there's a lot of standards in middle school, but there's very little retention and very little accountability for negative behaviors and that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that they're not doing anything, but their hands are kind of tied. So my point is that once they get over to the high school side, many of them want to continue exhibiting those same types of middle school behaviors, and they don't really understand the whole concept of earning credits, them being vital, because they've seen students who were not doing what they were supposed to do in the classroom, and then they look up and they're on the freshman level and they're right there with them. So so then they don't understand. And so the ones who have been acting out, the ones who haven't been completing their assignments, they believe that they can continue some of those same poor choices on the high school level. And then oftentimes the parents, it's sometimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, sometimes it's challenging to get a hold of the parent to let them know that you as an educator are seeing that they're going in the wrong direction. I get email, I send out progress reports, I send out emails, I make contact with students, I try to make phone calls, and even though we're getting close to the end of the semester, there are some parents I've never spoken to because they've never, or communicated with. There's never been any type of communication whatsoever, despite the fact that I've sent things, and that's very frustrating. So and then you can tell the parents who do get involved in the child's education if the child is slipping or falling behind or displaying negative behavior, or even if it's something kind of improvement. You can tell that the parent is involved and the parent is communicating to the student, because that student begins to reflect the values and the behaviors that you're wanting.
Okay. Thank you, Sister Huckleberry. I'm going to go to you, Pastor Terence, next. Tell us what is your view toward parents' involvement in the kids' education?
I think it's very important, because the parent allows for the bridge. It completes the connection between the home and the school through the parent. You have the connection between the teacher and the student, and the teacher and the parent, and it kind of creates what I call like a support triangle. And that triangle, a student, if that triangle is not set, the student knows how to navigate and manipulate it to their benefit, where they won't do good in school or they have poor behaviors. So the parent is very important. My personal philosophy is that the first thing I do is I treat all my students as people first before I see them as a student. And so, I've learned over the years that when I've done that, I'm able to get more out of my students than if I did not. So, and like Sister Huckleberry said, you have to see them as individuals. And that's very hard to do when you're sitting in a class of, you got 6 classes and you got 150 students, and takes you 6 weeks to try to remember everybody's name. You try to make sure you understand what they're going through. You try to create time to build that relationship. And if you build a positive, strong relationship, I'm going to make sure you understand that you don't connect with all of them, but you try to. And the ones that you are able to connect with are the ones that end up remembering who you are. It's very strange that a couple of students I connected with. I'm a pastor. I actually married a couple of my students because I connected with them. Isn't that amazing? I never thought nothing about it, but because we connected at that year, they called me and found me and said they wanted me to perform their ceremony. And I thought it was an honor because I didn't think I connected like that. So, they're successful, they moved on, but you got to build those personal relationships as the best you can as a teacher with the students.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brother Terence. Brother Mondrell, with you, teachers' involvement. And I guess I ask you as well, do you encourage or do you reach out to the teachers as well, Brother Mondrell? I mean, not the teacher, I'm sorry, to the parents, I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Just from my seat, it's constant phone calls. And I always encourage my staff just to reach out to the parents to find something positive. And so the relationship piece, just like Pastor Brown just said, it is the lifeline. And there's a lot of times where you can have the most difficult students, especially from the seat of a Black man. Kids naturally just kind of gravitate because they're not used to seeing men in a school setting. And so it's important that districts also hire people that look like the children that's in that community. And so that way, when parents come in, school can be an intimidating setting. It all depends on which setting you're in. I work in a Title I school. It's high poverty. About 70% of my students come from a local housing project. And so one thing that we do know and that we can come to grips with is that we care about their student success. We may have a different way of going about it, but yet and still, once people know how much you care, then the response is there. And it takes a minute to build a relationship, but that ongoing communication, whether it's we always call on the negative things, but it's important for us to, find something positive for those students for that day as well.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Mariah, what about you and parents' involvement?
I believe that parent involvement is vital. It's crucial. When you think about just growing up, normally a lot of times we adapt a lot of the same values that our parents had growing up, and I feel like it's the same education. If your parent is going to value education and show you and involve in your education, is actively speaking to your teacher, keeping up with your schoolwork, that's going to show the child how important education is. When you have a parent that's not doing those things, then that it might be sending the message to the student like, oh, my mom or my dad doesn't really care about education, so why should I?
Right.
I think that's very important. And it's just, and as a teacher, I feel like when you're there's a couple parents like Miss Huckleberry said that you've reached out to when they just, you hear nothing from them, and it can be very discouraging as a teacher because the kids notice it. Like, they're the ones that don't have their paper signed, they don't have the materials they need for class, they didn't bring this or that, and the kids notice, and they know like, oh, I'm the one that doesn't have my paper signed or whatever. And I think it does something to them. And I mean, in kindergarten they're young, but like as they grow older, I'm sure because of that experience in elementary school, it carries on through middle school and high school and things like that. And it just can be very discouraging. Like, you're putting so much effort into this child and do whatever you can, but the missing piece is that parent, and we need that parent there to fill in that gap for the student. So yes.
So true. Thank you, Mariah. Esther says he substituted Pike District. That's where U.S. is Huckleberry for 3 years. He said, Lord, I told one young boy in middle school that the paddle I knew would have worked good for him. The principal heard me say that and told me at the end of the day that he was on my side, but we can't say that. things like that to the kids now. And that's kind of ironic that I know is that you have to watch what you say. Things that we could say. The paddle was my companion when I was in elementary school. I could think I got a paddle almost at least once a week, if not twice a week. But I had kids tell me, Mr. Walton, they say you can't discipline. You can't hit us. And I look at him, I say, you think I can't? And I just give him that real mean look. I knew I couldn't do anything, Brother Terence, but I said, you think I can't? Try me. And I'm talking about elementary kids. I'm talking about 6-7-year-old kids. You can thump them upside the head, because a lot of times Lord know I want to thump them upside the head. Yes, I did. I didn't do it now. I don't have to confess, but it takes a lot of patience. I'm sure you all. But here's what we have to understand. I think sometimes we don't understand, and I'll ask you guys, the social dynamics. I think Sister Huckleberry kind of dealt with that, and Mondraw, you dealt with it. The systemic issues. I remember when I was working, I would watch the parents. I would be in the gym when parents came to pick up the kids. Some of the kids, they ran and hugged the parents. Some embraced them, and some parents just looked at them, never touched them, never even connected emotionally. And to me, that was so sad. And you see the hurt in those kids. Kids want to be loved. Can you guys tell me, have you experienced that, and what's that like to you? What do you see, and do you see that connection between the child and the parent relationship? Some kids will come in and say, guess what, my mama's boyfriend just got out of jail today. And so we have to deal with that when we're coming up. So we'll go reverse, or we'll start with you, Mariah, since we went to you last. Have you experienced anything like that? Noticed the attitude toward not only being involved, but the attitude on an emotional level that the parents, are you in a position where you see the interaction between the student and the parents?
Yeah, I feel like, kids in general, they love to talk. They'll tell their business. And so in elementary school, especially, like my daughter will, I can't tell her things because she gonna go, to daycare telling all the business or whatever, So, but yes, I see a lot like students come and they see their teacher as a safe place, as it should be. And so I'm going to tell you these things, and they even say, like, my mom told me I can't say this or whatever, they'll tell you, my mom or my dad told me I can't tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyways. And so I see that a lot in education, and, things like, oh, if kids are sick. Especially with COVID or whatever, and you can tell that they're sick, they have a fever, whatever, and we'll send them to the nurse, and like, no, my mommy said I can't go to the nurse because, I'll get in trouble if I go to, like, things like that. And so you can really tell what the relationship is like between the home and the child just by interacting with the child daily.
Okay. And it is kind of sad. Some of the kids don't want, parents don't want to go to the nurses because parents don't want to see bruises on the child as well. So it's a lot of reasons for that. Mondrell, next. You there, Mondrell?
My apologies. I forgot to unmute. Yeah, it's the same. Kids are definitely a product of their environment, and there's some exceptions to the rules too. I've seen students, some of our brightest students, and then you meet the parents, and the parents don't match the brightness of the student. And so it's just amazing how God gifts our students. But on the backside, kids are definitely more than perceptive. They're the heartbeat of the school. If you want to know anything that's going on in the community, things that's going on in other people's lives, and who's dating who, and all the XYZs, the kids definitely know it. So, yeah, I would definitely agree.
The grapevine, the grapevine at the school system. Brother Terence, tell us about, you and parents. Have you noticed the interaction? Because you have some pretty difficult students that you work with. What age group are your students, Terence?
Well, currently right now, I actually work with 9 through 12, and then I kind of focus on high school seniors, but I'm really in an alternative setting. So, we get the kids that get expelled, drugs, weapons, crimes in the community, I get all those guys to come see me. I've been doing that for about 11 years, and I taught science or biology in that function. And when you deal with parents, because we're talking about parents, correct? We're talking about the parents,
right?
And the parents connection. Our parents connection is one of our most important assets that we have in our facility, is that we have to build that parent relationship. And like Monzel says, it said, if you want to know what's going on in the community, all you got to do is get one or two students. They'll tell you everything that's going on. So they become your ear to the ground of what's actually happening in the school, inside the school. They kind of and you need to have your finger on that pulse to know what's going on, to make sure you keep the culture of the school positive. So yeah, so I've dealt with very difficult students, but again, one thing that we do, if you respect them as people, you're a person, and you set the guidelines high, and you support them, they'll rise to the occasion with the right supports. And I'm a firm believer in seeing it happen over and over again. People say students can't do this, can't do that. We have things called SOLs. Those are the same things. I think I-steps back home. Kids who never pass tests come to us, they'll pass them with support and with the parental support. But it's very important to have that parent support in our building as well, any building, because without that, we would not be able to be successful at all.
Very good. Thank you. Sister Huckleberry, tell us about parents' involvement. Or do you get?
I would say,
I was saying, or do you get much interaction at high school level?
Wait a minute. Say it one more time, please.
Do you get much interaction on a high school level with the kids, with the parents?
I do see some. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know it or not, but Pike, they get new schedules every semester. So you only get a chance to really see the students with the parents on those parent-teacher conference days. And then there's only so many of those conferences that can be held. Now, the same thing, I guess, primarily in when I was in IPS, but some of the issues that I've seen are, every now and then you get the parent of the student that you really want to see on those days. Not saying that you don't want to see the parents, but on those conference days, oftentimes you'll get the parents of the students who are performing average, above average, or outstanding. Most of the time, the ones that you want to see where the student, for whatever reason, is performing poorly or extremely poorly, you don't see them. And it's not, and you can't always say that it's the parent per se, because I've seen a vast number of students within the last handful of the years that aren't even being supported by a parent. It's more so like a grandparent, a foster parent, an aunt or an uncle, or maybe even an older sibling. And so the dynamics of the family is changing. And so therefore, sometimes those people just don't have the time to put into the child because, in the case of in the case of a grandparent, they might be retired and they're dealing with this situation of trying to raise their grandchild, and quite frankly, they're just kind of exhausted. They just don't have the ability to really do it like they would have with their own children. So I don't see the involvement 100% the way that I would like for it to be, because there's so many different family dynamics that have changed a lot of things. And then even this year with COVID, we had to do Zoom conferences, and we only had room to see like maybe 10 to 15 parents, and we all had like 130, 140 students. So,
okay.
Yeah, it just makes it really challenging.
Yeah. Now, as a therapist, I have had a lot of my clients whose kids are doing telehealth for learning, and it's caused a lot of anxiety on the part of the parents. What about you all? How does e-learning affect you all, the ones that are teaching e-learning? I guess I'll make it twofold, because one of the questions, how does it affect you? And can you tell a difference in the kids? Because some parents are telling me the kids aren't learning because they, especially if someone has attention deficit, it's hard for them to sit at that computer and learn. So you tell me. I guess we'll start with you, Mariah. Tell us, what have you noticed that?
So the beginning of the year, we started off in person, and then we did about 5 or 6 weeks virtual when there was a big spike. I want to say it was like November, December, and then we came back in January. And I feel like it's a huge stressor on the parents, especially parents who can't work from home. You know, they have to figure out, how can I work? How can I stay home with my child? And I think especially for the younger, he's like kindergarten, parents have to show them, how can you click on Zoom. And I kind of taught them, because we knew we were going to in-person or virtual. So I kind of taught them, like, okay, open this app, get on Zoom. But again, as a child, you can only remember or do so much. So I think a lot of the responsibility fell on the parent, and it was very stressful for them having to figure out what to do. And as a teacher, you know, if we're working on handwriting or things like that, like, I cannot be there to like hold their pencil and say, this is how you make an M, or I just have to kind of show them how to do it, and hoping that they get it on the computer, hoping that there's an adult there that can, you know, see. And then you also have the other end of things where, you know, you have a parent there, even a sibling there, who's telling him all the answers. So it's like, oh, well, in person, you didn't know all your sounds, but all of a sudden we're virtual, and now you know all the sounds. Now you can read these words and things like that. And so, and then I've also had kiddos who were started out, because we had the option of, the parent could choose to keep them virtual or send them back, and they had a window where you can, you know. So I had a couple kids who started out virtual at the very beginning of the year, and then came back in October. And from talking to the parents, I had two. And one of the moms actually reached out to me last week on Friday, and she said that coming back to in person was the best thing she could have done for her child. She said she's an EL student, so she speaks Spanish at home and English here. And so when it's helped with her language, she's just learning and growing so much more in person than she has been virtually. And so yeah, but you can definitely see the deficits that virtual learning is having in education, and on the parents and the student and the teacher. So
yeah, you know, I remember one of my clients, she's working from telehealth. She's in a managerial position. She's working on telehealth, and she has attention deficit child that she won't with that, try and get him to stay focused, and she's trying to be in on her job, and you could see the stress, and she was just sharing with me the stress. So it's a stressful time. Sister Huckleberry, tell us, what have you noticed that how that has affected, or do they have e-learning in Pike Township, or where are they doing?
Okay. For us, it's gotten to be. I can speak for my team, and we're freshman English teachers for my team, because we've shared some of the similar frustrations. There are still now, like I told you, we change. Students get new schedules every semester, so we don't necessarily have the same students that this semester that we had last semester. But I still have students in schools out May 25th. I still have students that I have never seen. I've never seen them. They do not join the Zoom, despite the emails, despite the calls, despite all of that. I have never seen those students. And so some of them are behind the scenes working, trying to get assignments completed basically on their own without any help. And then there are some students who I have never seen and are not working at all. They have 0%. And that's the most frustrating thing, because despite the calls, despite the emails, despite involving administration, these kids are just out there, just missing in action, and there's nothing that I can do about it.
Okay. All right.
And
Before I
I'm
go to
sorry.
Terrence, this is Huckleberry. I was asking you. So what happens? Because some schools I've heard they have a zero fail policy that they don't flunk the kids no matter what. So what do you do if you don't see the child? What do you do when it comes grade time? How are you allowed to fail the student, or what do you have to do?
Well, it was kind of similar for some teachers first semester, and they told us that if it, if there's in these cases, there's nothing that we can do other than to go ahead and give them a failing grade. Now, first semester, they did throw the kids a lifeline and said that if, regardless of the kid's grade, if the student was able to pass the final exam, they weren't going to fail the student. And so we did get a response from, more of a response first semester. And some kids did manage to, pass the class and get their credit. But of course, it was barely passing. So if you had, and it was frustrating to teachers because there were students who had, like, say, for instance, a single digit percentage. They passed the final exam, and then they got a 60%, which is, a D minus. And then there were students who had been coming all the time who didn't earn a passing grade, and so then they wound up failing. And so it was frustrating to the teachers because it's like, how do you go ahead and bump a kid up who maybe had 5 or 6% just because they passed the final exam, and then a kid who's coming all the time who maybe couldn't get past 45% or whatever, he fails, but then this kid who had 5% passes because they passed the final.
So did they give you option? Did you?
Oh,
excuse me. Sorry. Did they give you option? Or your hands tied, or were you able to have the option to go ahead and pass a student who had been come to class?
They did throw it back to us and say, well, you have professional discretion. And so it was a little challenging because then we had to kind of think about what does that really mean. And so I'm sure that some people just avoided failing students at all and did it for everybody. But some of us were really had our, it was definitely a stuck between a rock and a hard place because you're putting, it's your professionalism that's on the line. So what do you do? But then at the same time, how do you fail a student because you don't know if they had Wi-Fi issues, you don't know what the circumstances were. So it was a lot of frustration, and it was really physically, it was mentally, and then it even started affecting some people physically, just draining, just trying to figure out how to do right by the kids, and at the same time not just give them an education, just give it away.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
If that makes sense, just giving away the credits, and because you want the kids to earn it, but at the same time, do you know what's going on at home? No, we don't. So
you're right. There's a lot of variables there, and I know that would be a hard decision. Brother Terence.
Yes, e-learning, it's been extremely stressful for this teacher and for the student. And our county instructed us to, for the first few weeks, just do wellness checks on our students. We give them their curriculum and they work through it, but our primary concern was their mental and emotional health. And from that point, I think it helped a lot of students kind of navigate through it. And they've taught us how to supported us through mental and social health here in our own county. And I think that because we left school March of 2020. And then we didn't come back into the building. I didn't come back into the building until January of 2021. And but we didn't have no students come back. I had 0 students come back in my program to the building. They're still all virtual. So I sit in the classroom all day and look at a computer screen. So but it's stressful because you don't know what the student is going through You don't know if they have connectivity. You don't know if they have. But I will say this in a positive light: we have found a lot of things we can do better through this.
True.
One thing that I want to do is that it's not all negative. So some students actually excelled at the virtual platform. Some teachers even excelled at virtual teaching. So whatever we have learned, we're going to keep. That was good. We're going to keep doing it. Whatever we need to improve on, we need to improve on. But it's been extremely stressful. There's no way around it, you know. And I was listening to Sister Huckleberry at Pike. Yeah, it's tough when you got to kind of have to navigate between who passes, who doesn't, and you just have to, you know, go with your gut feeling and see what's best for the student, and that's tough. But you know, like she said, you just have to be a professional about it and just live with the choices you make and keep on moving. And that's what we do in education. We always try to do what's best for the student.
Very good. Now I'm going to throw a question in there with you while you answer that, Brother Mondrell. But I ask you a question: what does the child's attitude? What impact does that have? If you have a child that's been disruptive the whole time, is it easy for you to say, nah, you gonna go another year, or does that make a difference? Or I guess you would say you're neutral on that, but you tell me.
All right, so by no means does my view reflect that of my districts. Let me put that disclaimer out. But I think from an educational perspective, teachers carry a lot of mileage, Bishop. It's a lot of mileage, and just this past year, I know in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was kind of glad in the sense that we could work from home, because it just kind of stopped a lot of the nonsense, a lot of the chaos, and it has made us better. It's made us more efficient, just on so many different levels. Whereas we would hold staff meetings, and you know, people have families outside of work. Now people can talk on the phone, or you know, take a Zoom call on their way to different places. So this has changed us in so many different ways. And this is also just really a time for grace and flexibility, because as these other educators are pretty much so laid it out. I mean, we really can't see what's going on behind closed doors. There's students who are the older sibling having to help younger siblings and take care of the household while families are out. Then when it comes down to high stakes testing in the pandemic, there's no real school accountability on that. You know, I'm not going to say no real school accountability, but it's hard to hold teachers accountable, administrators accountable, when a lot of these students hadn't been in class. And so it's just kind of one of those things where, you know, you do have to kind of operate from the edict of grace. Even dealing with staff members, I've lost a couple of staff members due to COVID-19, and just being culturally responsive there. So it's just been one of those years where you know, we just have to operate from that seat of grace.
Very good. Let me see. Brother Ezra had a comment some time ago. A principal had told me there is no law saying schools can't paddle a child. I guess Brother Ezra's kind of fixed on that paddling, okay? They just want you to think that the second school system does want to pull with it because all the possible drama from the parents. If a child gets a bruise on their skin, okay, Brother Ezra, he's on that. I guess Brother Norman must know you because he said it was a nice disclaimer, Brother Mondrell. He knows that. Sister Walton says, it's my turn now. She says, it's my turn. Is it hard not to have a favorite student or to show favoritism toward your favorite? We run out of time, so I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds or 45 seconds to answer that. We'll start with you, Brother Terence.
It's hard to show favoritism, not to show favoritism. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard because you got kids who do exactly what you want, and you end up tendency doing more for them, and you got ones who who you can't hardly stand. I'm just gonna make it real, but you still got to educate them, and you just don't want to deal with them. So you have to be fair, but fair is not what is equal.
Right.
So I'm gonna say that's my 30 seconds.
Yeah, and I will say this right here real quick. A lot of time, some kids would be so disruptive to the whole class, then that causes you to become very angry with that child because you know they're taken away from the time that you spend so much time correcting them that you can't apply that time to kids that would really want to learn. So Huckleberry,
that's right.
same thing.
Yeah, that's right. Because you have to be a defender of the other students in the classroom. The teacher has to defend the other students' educations. So sometimes you got to sacrifice one for the good of the whole.
Yeah. I remember when I was teaching, one bad apple, I get the apple out of there. Now, I tell you how bad it got. I put one kid, sent him to the principal. 5 minutes later, principal sent him back to the classroom. He acted up. I sent him back to the principal again. 10 minutes later, the principal sends him back to me.
Right.
I send him back to the principal. If he's going to go or I'm going to go. So if I ain't put him in another class. But I mean, the principals don't want the responsibility. Nobody wants the responsibility. And the challenge is some of those kids, they just need attention. I'm going to say this right here, and then I'm going to turn to Sister Huckleberry. But I told the kids one time, I said, if y'all keep acting up, you don't have to sit next to me. And guess what? The kids were acting up, and someone said, Mr. Walton, they want to sit next to you. They need attention, and that's sad. They're acting up. It's negative, but it really touched me because so I had to find another way to talk to them because they were acting up because they wanted to sit next to me at the desk, especially being a male figure. So I had to kind of rethink how I respond to them and try to change that negative behavior into a positive behavior and give them attention for something positive, but not for the negative action. Okay, so it's Huckleberry.
Okay. I'd say that I don't really have problems with that area as far as having favorites. It was more so maybe the expectation of, oh, he or she is a great student, so they usually turn in some good work. And so what I wound up doing was when it came to like essays, for example, I started challenging myself to make sure I didn't have any biases. So I started telling the students to just put their ID number on the essay. So then that way everybody got a fair shake. And it was a test for me to see whether or not I was grading everybody fairly, as opposed to, oh, so-and-so usually does well. So I know this is an A paper. And so-and-so usually does pretty poorly. So I challenged myself, and then I was, there were some times where I was like, wow, okay, I need to continue to do this. So then that way I don't have that bias. Yeah. So that was one thing that I did.
Very good. Thank you. Sister Mariah.
I would say yes and no. Favorites. We all have favorites. Like Terence said, if like when you have a really good student, you're going to trust them to do more, and you're going to want them to do more. And you have a student who is a little harder, more challenging, you're going to get on them a lot more. But what I've realized is after the fact that I've had them, they turn into one of my favorite students I've had. So for example, I had a kid last year, very challenging, talk to mom all the time, like outbursts and things like that. And this year, I just love him. He's in 3rd grade now, because I taught 2nd last year, and like he's probably one of my favorite students I've ever taught so far years. And it was great. I don't know, because the more energy you put into this child, the more you invest in this child and their behavior. After the fact, like you just seem to favorite them more. And so but so yeah, they end up being my favorite. After the fact that kind of miss him, or so yeah.
Very, very good. I don't know if I got you or not, my girl. You get a chance to answer that question yet?
I have not, but I'll defer.
Okay. Pastor Elder Nick is on here. Did you have a comment? But Sister Menorah said, my hat's off to the educators as a daughter of a retired teacher, which I didn't know. I'm going to let Sister Wall, and I know retired teacher. Having taught for a few years myself, I really pray for some of the parents have a better appreciation for educators. You're not paid enough for all you do. And I certainly agree with you, Sister Menorah. That's why I said, if it was up to me, I don't know why the legislature has not found a way to reward teachers more, especially in your state, Mondrell, in Atlanta, Georgia, a few years ago. The way that teachers were treated because of the I-STEP test, and I'm sure some of the tests, as we know, are biased because you learn from your experiences. If there's certain experience you have not had, you cannot be held accountable for it. And so a lot of things that you find out that the tests are biased. So some of those students were actually put in prison. Is that correct, or jail for?
It's called
What's it?
it's called the prison to jail pipeline.
This is Elder Nick Bolden. He's on there. We would like to see you, Elder Nick, but you can go ahead.
I'm sorry, and I came in late. I just got finished teaching. A teacher's job ain't never done.
Yes.
But I've enjoyed what I heard. And yes, you did mention that. It's called the school to prison pipeline. The correlation, like if you can't read by a certain level, they supposedly build jails based on your reading level in anticipation of these kids that can't read will eventually become criminals. So it's not a game. And COVID and e-learning wasn't a game either. Many kids, some prospered, but so many of them just don't even sign in, and it's like a vacation for them. I hate to say.
Yeah, Bro Nick, he's also a teacher at
Pike. Yes, sir.
Is Pike High School where you're teaching at?
I'm at an elementary school in Pike Township.
Okay, you're in Pike Township. Okay. Okay, so what Nick is saying that the system or the systems that be out there, they're dependent on evaluating kids' education as determination how the size of prisons that they build, which is really sad. But what I was saying earlier, thank you, Elder Nick. What I was saying earlier, Brother Mondrell, I've forgotten the teachers. I know they were arrested and they were given jail time because of how they were grading the kids, letting some of the kids pass. Are you familiar with that, Brother Mondrell? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
About 4 years ago.
Yeah, there was a cheating scandal. Yeah,
cheating scandal, yes.
Where I guess a lot of administrators and some people were coached into trying to steer some of the test results. And I know people who've been affected on both sides. But needless to say, it's just kind of one of those. It was one of those times that you know, just going back to it, it's the pressure of high stakes testing, and I think Sister Huckleberry just alluded to it earlier. You know, I think the trap that a lot of our systems and basically our country is running to is just a one size fits all, and a lot of times educators are graded on how well students perform on those standardized tests, and you know, I don't know exactly what happened internally. Certainly don't want to speak on it, but I do know a few people who were named in it, who I know beyond a shadow of a doubt were exonerated, and so yeah.
We're running out of time. I have a few more questions I'm going to ask you guys. I guess I'll start with that subject. What type of pressure is on you teachers as teachers? And I'll start you, Terence. We'll go around Terence, and then Brother Mondrell, then Sister Mariah, then Sister Huckleberry. What pressures do you have on as far as meeting deadlines and guidelines for school? Do you, you know, just a few minutes, tell us what are some of the pressures that you feel?
Just some of the few pressures which come with teaching is making sure that you put grades in on time, that you have proper open communication with the staff, with the parents. making sure that we have given the student every opportunity to be successful that we can. And those pressures are three of the top ones that we kind of feel. I mean, with seniors, our number one thing is on-time graduation and making sure students are graduating on time, and we're doing everything we can that the law will allow us to do to make sure we can support students in doing so. So those pressures are there because on-time graduation directly correlates to funding. So anytime you mess with money, you got to make sure you hit it. So yeah.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother Terry. Brother Montreal, same question.
I would just say the pressure of teaching the whole child versus just providing adequate access to education. And I know these educators here can attest to it, that it's no longer that you just teach math or reading literacy. You're teaching manners. You're teaching etiquette. And so that pressure, and then finding that balance between the teacher, parent, the student, and once again, making a decision that's best for the student.
Okay, very good. Thanks. This is Mariah. Same question.
I would say the deadlines, by the end of this grade, they need to know this, maybe at this reading level, this many words. On top of, like Mondrell said, teaching the whole child, how do you manage your emotional health in a healthy way? We've got like a social emotional curriculum. How to deal with grief or loss, because a lot of our kids deal with those things. So it's how to be a good citizen. Like, how do you go out and be a part of the community and contribute in a positive way in the community? And so on top of the education, learning math, science, reading, and those things, you have to teach them how to be a person in the world, how to live as a good person in the world. So yeah, there you go.
Very good. Very good. I guess there's a lot of demands on you all as teachers, and I'm sure Mariah, you met the challenge. You were selected as Teacher of the Year, so at some point you went above and beyond. So congratulations to you. That speaks volumes for you, because if we're talking about the pressures that they have, it's pressure just maintain it. But if you're recognized even among your peers, that means that you have really put in the homework. So congratulations once again to you. Sister Huckleberry.
I would say some of the largest or most difficulty I had would be, did I do enough? Certainly, I have some peers that say either the student does the work or they don't do the work. But have I done enough to make sure that student is ready for the next year? Have I done what I needed to do? And then the other thing would be, have I done enough to get that student to understand to try to get them to be 100% vested in their own education, and trying to make them a lifelong learner as opposed to just do these few assignments to get the credit.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, a lot of self-imposed pressure to be the best that you can be.
Right.
And
I have seen that too for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen some teachers just don't care anymore. You can see teachers that just don't care. They're there to be a paycheck, and that's it. They've thrown in the towel. They said, "I'm giving it up. I don't care. Y'all do what y'all want to do. Give me my paycheck." Next semester, next new kids come in. Next question I want to ask. Let me see. I want to ask this last question. We're running out of time. Ellen Nick, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you still? Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question. What are some of the challenges that you have as being a teacher?
Well, should I go first, or someone else go first? I mean,
no, you're the last one. Everybody else has
challenges are part of the territory. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's part of the territory. You face them every day. But if you're a good teacher, a strong teacher, you just have to overcome the challenges. Sometimes waking up in the morning, anticipating the behavior of a kid. But you get there, pray about it, and so oftentimes Lord bless, and the day goes better than expected. So, like I said, the challenges come with the job. There are many, but you also have to overcome them. So that's what it is.
Very good. Thank you. Brother Norman Murray, very good question. As men and women of God, how hard is it not to quote scriptures or go that route with the student, staff, or parents? I'm going to say this right here while y'all think about it. When I was substitute teacher, I was I had the kids in a group and we were talking about something. I said, hey man, I didn't subconsciously I didn't realize you so you say, man, the kid asked a question. I said, hey man, like they said, sir, are you a preacher? But so some of that is going to come out of you. But go ahead. Who wants to answer that question?
Hey, Bishop,
I'll answer it. I'll go. Yeah, it is hard. When I first started teaching, it was a lot harder than it is now. But you have to remember when you're in the teaching role, you're agent of the state, and you represent the state in that classroom. So you have to kind of remember that. But your principles don't change, though you may not quote the Bible. You're still loving people. You're still treating people right. You're still looking for honesty. You're still promoting, equality. You're still doing all these biblical principles. We just don't say they're in the. We just can't say that was in the Bible.
Question: Are you allowed to, like, as a therapist? I will ask my client. I guess it's different because there are adults, and so they have freedom of choice. But I ask my clients, do you mind if I use biblical principles? And most of them will say yes. Now, I guess you don't have that privilege or right when it comes to kids. So are you allowed? What are you allowed to do? Sister Mariah, did you have your hand? Were you?
No, but I can speak on them. And I feel like I do have students who will want to talk about God and the Lord and things like that. So I'm going to talk about it if students not. I'm going to say, you know what the Bible says, Jesus says this, and like I'm not just going to go out, and preach to my whole class, but you do have students who know about the Bible, or maybe not know, but are curious, have seen it around. And I actually do it like a group of teachers. They're women. We have like a Bible study every Thursday at our school, which I love. So I think it's important to have other believers at your school or find teachers who, you can do that with. But she gave me these posters of the fruits of the Spirit, and they don't say joy. This is the scripture of joy. It says joy, and it has a picture of a fruit. And it says joy is being happy, and it says kindness as a fruit. So it's like showing the fruits of the Spirit, showing biblical principles but not saying this is in the Bible and this is where you can find it. And my students love it, and they're like, oh, the fruit. We talk about, hey, so-and-so was showing kindness, the strawberry, things like that. So instill those values in them still without saying this, from the Bible or this is what the Lord said. So.
Great, thank you. I like to say before going forward, I appreciate those that are sharing. We have about 10 people who have shared this, want to continue to share this because there may be someone later on that wants to hear this. Mondrell, did you answer that question? You use biblical principles. I say you're the one that's an agent of the state, right?
No, I said that.
Okay, what about you, Mondrell?
It's pretty much so echoing the same sentiments as Pastor. Definitely agent of the state, but then you minister to the kids out of your core values and from a biblical worldview. And I'll tell you one thing that's been most effective is approaching education just like you would ministry, and kids just naturally gravitate towards that. So certainly have to be careful, but there are kids who are inquisitive, and I wouldn't be a child of God if I wouldn't, shine a light and lead them to the light.
Very good, thank you, Sister Huckleberry.
I do keep it in mind that I am an agent of the state, but oftentimes I'm able to get away with some things because oftentimes my students will open the door if we're reading something or we're trying to figure out what the message is. Some of them might say, "Oh, well, that's like that one story in the Bible." And so then what I'll normally do, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then I said, then, some of the kids do have this look on their face like, oh my gosh, are you supposed to be talking about that? And I said, well, keep in mind,
Right.
the Bible is considered literature. We're not teaching religion. We're talking about the stories in the Bible. We're talking about, so there's a way to kind of bring it in without it being, uh, like, trying to appeal to a doctrine or something. There is a way, because like I said, I'm an English teacher, so I do have a little bit more of a liberty with it, but I oftentimes there's a point that we're making. There's a connection. So then that way
Right.
it's not just a standalone thing.
Okay. We have about 5 more minutes, and then we're going to wrap it up. But along the same line with Sister Huckleberry, my final question is, and you can answer the question if you want to, if you feel comfortable. In the news here, the debate has been on the teaching of critical race theory. What are your views on the teaching of critical race theory? Should it be taught? Should it not be taught? Or if you feel uncomfortable dealing with that, just say, I defer not to do it. But I think that's something that we should be aware of. I think history is so important too many times. And as educators, you all are the ones to teach the young people the history, and the history has to be portrayed accurately. When you pull and are selected, when you are dealing with history, it affects the student, it affects generation. So if any of you feel comfortable addressing that critical race theory, if, when we're in church and we go to step out, we just stick our finger up. That means I'm tipping out as quiet as I can. Does anyone
Um,
want to tip out, or do you feel comfortable responding to that question?
I'm comfortable. I don't mind teaching it. I just kind of do wonder. I think it's necessary. I'm supportive. I like to know where are we going with this? What do we want to accomplish? I listen to NPR, and I hope it's not. I don't want to be part of a trend or a fad.
Mm-hmm.
NPR. That's every program is something about do a Black Lives Matter or something like that. And I just hope it's not just the intent behind it. I hope it's just not a catchy kind of a trendy kind of a thing to do. And I do wonder what it's leading to.
Okay, very good question. I guess, and I understand what you're saying. My question is, which do you as an individual feel comfortable? And I guess my thinking is this, and you can just tell me what your thoughts. My thinking is that you want to know as much about your history as possible, and we know that it's just like if we look at the election right now. One view is that the election was stolen. One view is that it was a fair election, and whoever has the greatest input in history, how would this be? How would this be recorded in history? 25 years from now, 30 years from now, what would the teachers be teaching? Will the teachers be teaching that in 2020 there was an election that was stolen, or would they just will teach when 2020 there was some controversy? So I think it's important. That's going to be my last question. Did anyone else have anything that you want to add to that? And I know it may
I
be.
would.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I would say that we're at my school, we're being encouraged to talk about the issues. With George Floyd, with the Asian hate crimes, we're being encouraged because we know that our students are seeing this. It's around them. They may have family members that have been affected by it, but we're encouraged to incorporate it, and teachers are even sharing things, um, you know, emailing one another. It's like, hey, I created this great lesson, or I found this lesson. This is a way. Even our media specialists, they're sending us things like, here's a resource on how you could possibly approach this topic or that topic. So we've been very open and have been talking to the students about it and giving them a chance to just maybe, if nothing else, to journal. because we had a lesson where about the Asian hate crimes, where we presented them with some articles and said and asked them a few questions, and if they wanted to respond to it, they could. And so it wasn't something necessarily where we were forcing the students to deal with all of the issues, but a lot of times just giving them that space to do so if they choose to.
Very, and plus that's a healthy environment for them to be taught, because sometimes you can get misinformation from different. Clarice McDonald says here in Evansville, you can let your kids attend Christian ed in a trailer outside of school on the parking lot. I remember when we were in grade school, we had weekday religious education, and that gave us a lot of us biblical who did not have a biblical foundation. It kind of gave them a biblical basis for it, and things have changed quite a bit. Thank you, Sister Huckleberry, for your response. Also, let me see, Ron said, well-taught curriculum structure and great teachers can make a huge difference. Sometimes it's the relationship build the child's desire to want to learn. Jamie Gonzalez says, the information, I had a second COVID shot. I'm so fatigued. Blessings to all the teachers. All right, God bless you, and hope that you do well with that COVID shot. Let me see. Did I leave anybody else out? I'm trying to read this right here. Did everyone respond to that question? Okay.
I think history is going to be taught. You deal with history, and if you, I just got my license out of science and history, so I teach a history class now. And one thing I found about history that history is really what you make out of it. You can only teach so much of history. History is like down the middle, but there's so many layers to it. So I think I like what Sister Huckleberry said. If we can teach them to be lifelong learners,
right,
then they'll be able to explore their own learning and be able to develop their own independent thoughts. But the key is to develop lifelong learners. Like the other brother said, as long as it's not a fad, because education has a whole lot of fads in it. What was new 10 years ago is now new again. So just developing lifelong learners and through all those type of things, especially with history points, you'll find out that a lot of history, both positive and negative, is not taught in the school.
Okay, one last response.
I'm just gonna add something really quick.
Yes, thank you.
I would just say we owe it to them to do so. When think about growing up, there are a lot of things in history that I was taught that this is what happened and this is how it came to be, and then growing up and come to find out that is not, what really happened. I think we owe it to them, and like the other two were saying, let them figure out on their own beliefs. We need to expose them to it, all the different perspectives, and then it's on them to figure out what they believe, and if they want to do some more research or whatever, they can do that. But I think that we need to give them all perspectives so they can find out, instead of just saying this is how it is, and then they're believing that their whole life, and then one day they're like, my kindergarten teacher or my third or my eighth grade teacher taught me this and this is not true or whatever. So yeah,
I agree with you. I think the important thing is to give them exposure and let them choose, because there's so many different concepts. Because we come to understand that if we teach one concept, then someone else has a right to teach their thought pattern and things like that. So we do give them opportunity, because there's so many other negative stuff that's being taught that we should be able to just spice up a little bit with a little moral principles, because morality is pretty much gone out the window for a lot in politics, in religion, and a lot of things. And so I'm so thankful for each of you that are ethical individuals, Christian-minded people, and I'm sure you're all making a difference in everyone's life. As above said, the great Bishop Morris Ellis Golder said he learned his first hymn from the schoolroom. My time changed. Christina says, hey, Miss Broader. Let me see, says something else again. I agree, because the kids will remember who taught them what. That's very true. I'm going to say this right here as we're wrapping up. You all play a vital role. You guys are phenomenal. You never know an impact. I just finished, this is my latest book, and I give a tribute to my 5th grade teacher Miss Grace Goodman, who was very impactful in my life. I talk about her, how she turned my life around. So you never know whose life you're going to impact. She told me one time, and I wrote in the book, we were picking for a student council president. And, and they were going around the room. They said, I think this person would do good. They said, this person would do good. And they went around, I'm calling on names, and they got around the last person. Somebody said, Anthony Walton. You can imagine, fifth grade kid. Anthony Walton. And for the first time, she caused me to believe in myself. My fifth grade teacher. I was in one class in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Was a special education class. What was special about it was people who were one step from going to the juvenile home or boys' school. The people who had potential but stayed in trouble. That was me. I stayed in trouble, but someone saw something good in me, said, boy, you know, you're too good for this right here. And they worked with me. And because of teachers investing in my life, positive teachers, my life has not been the same, and it's changed me. Now, this is my 4th book. I'm working on my 5th book, and I've got a number of college degrees. So I want you to realize that you are making an impact in somebody's life. Somebody's watching you. And my 5th grade teacher, you know how far long ago that's been. I'm kind of up there. I might look young now, but I'm a little older than I am. But my 5th grade teacher made that much of an impact on me. I have a chapter in here that I dedicate to her and how she changed mine. Just a FYI, if anybody's interested, called The Eye of the Believer, because we deal with people's thought processes and how that affects you. And sometimes we have to realize when it comes to the kids, there are a gamut of reasons why the kids can learn. There are a number of barriers to them learning, and you have to learn how to be patient. I will say it's finally, I had some kids that I felt like that they were couldn't do a thing with them. And next thing I know, they turned around, and kids can change. Never give up on these kids. Never give them, no matter how bad they are. Some kids are hurting at home. They've been abused. These kids have a lot more challenging than we did. And you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So please be mindful of that. When it comes to those kids, we have to be prayerful. Find one interesting perspective from the varying levels of education, background, and experience. Thank you, Norman. Thank for all those who commented, gave your perspective on things. Those who shared this, we appreciate you. We appreciate your input on here. Thank each and every one of you. We encourage you to go out, continue to do well. Sister Brawley, we want you to get Teacher of the Year next year. Mondrell, Terence, Sister Huckleberry, Brother Clyde, we want you all to excel and be the best you can. And with the help of God, you all can make it. Thank you again for tuning into this episode of It's My Turn Now. We love you. God bless you. Don't forget to share this right here. Again, I always say that I have people will comment on a program from 2 or 3 months ago, so you don't know who's watching this right here, and you don't know who you're impacting. So thank you again for being a part of this right here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. God bless you. Be encouraged. And remember, you always get a turn on It's My Turn. God bless you. Love you.
God bless you.